Whether in the humanities or the arts, the social sciences or the physical sciences, every area of study helps create the conditions for stability and equality in society. From engineering to medicine, from teaching to law, from journalism to architecture, all of the university's professional programs of study produce engaged citizens and professionals and contribute to the overall health and well-being of civil society. In fact, in many ways, the research university is a microcosm of larger society and can be viewed as a symbolic model and vision for what we want our society to look like. Because violence is never condoned at a university level as it is often condoned at the state level, the university provides rich models and innovative approaches to peacemaking and peacekeeping for all of us to learn from. Now, just as the modern research university explores the critical study of peace and promotes the conditions that lead to peace through its coursework and training, it also provides unparalleled opportunities for students to explore the ultimate questions in their life. And by the ultimate questions, I refer to the questions of meaning, purpose, and identity. The questions that all university students, and indeed all of us, wrestle with, but questions that are rarely addressed inside the classroom. The ages of 18 to 25 are perhaps the most seminal in one's life in terms of one's intellectual and spiritual development. And the lessons learned while at university, both inside and outside the classroom, have a profound effect on the trajectory of one's personal and professional development. The scholarly pursuit of knowledge equips students with the analytical tools and intellectual facilities necessary to understand the external physical world, while the spiritual journey of discovery challenges students to develop an understanding of their own internal metaphysical world. While I was in college, I saw thousands of university students in Boston searching for meaning, purpose, and identity through many different channels. Some looked towards the manufactured mysticism of drugs. Others took up the religion of collegiate sports. Some followed the Grateful Dead. Others followed religious scripture. Some immersed themselves in charity work, while others drowned themselves in excess. Whatever their path, they were all seekers, looking for spirituality in what amounted to a free marketplace of ideas and ideologies. A seminal event which changed my life occurred my junior year at Tufts when I spent a summer abroad on the Antioch Buddhist Studies program. The purpose of this program was to learn about Buddhist philosophy and meditation, both in the form of classroom instruction and also in the form of a regular meditation practice. For 4 months, I lived in Bodh Gaya, a small, unassuming village that is considered to be the center of the Buddhist universe because it is the town and it's the place where the tree exists under which the Buddha was enlightened. I lived in the Burmese monastery and took up the vows of the Theravada monk. I also spent a month in the Himalayas of Nepal doing field research amongst the high-altitude Sherpa communities there. And inspired by the study abroad experience, less than 1 week after I graduated from college, I set across the world on a 16-month spiritual odyssey. During that time, I immersed myself in the Buddhist world. I visited Buddhist shrines in Japan. I celebrated Buddhist New Year in Tibet. I traveled with Buddhist monks in Thailand. I meditated with Buddhist teachers in Sri Lanka. I explored Buddhist archaeological sites in Indonesia and Cambodia. And at the end of my globetrotting, I came to the startling realization that no matter how far I traveled, and no matter how much I had seen, my real journey was a pilgrimage inward, deep inside myself to find myself. Years later, my mentor at Harvard echoed a similar sentiment. His whole life, he wanted to be an astronaut, so he went to the Air Force Academy. But when he was there, he started reading existential philosophy, and he realized that no matter how far he went into outer space, even if he had gone where no man had ever gone before, he could never escape his own mind. And the real journey was a journey inward to understand himself. And after that, he dropped out of the Air Force Academy and studied Buddhism, and is now a professor of Buddhism. As it was for me, this lifelong journey often begins for many others with their undergraduate experience, and often continues throughout their graduate work. Ultimately, their university experiences lay down a spiritual framework for their whole life. In this context, the modern research university not only offers its students disciplinary and professional tools to create the conditions of peace on a societal level, it also challenges students to think introspectively about meaning and purpose in their lives, thereby creating the conditions for internal peace on a personal level. The modern research university is no longer just a microcosm of American society. Increasingly, it is becoming a microcosm of our global world. As international students continue to attend American research universities in high numbers, new opportunities for engagement and reconciliation emerge. At USC, for example, we have more international students than any school in the US. Out of our 35,000 students, almost 8,000 of them are international students. This rich diversity of students provides new opportunities for dialogue and collaboration that could impact peacemaking on both local and global levels. Over the past 2 years at USC, I've seen a number of remarkable opportunities around this phenomenon. And this afternoon, I'd like to share 3 examples with you that really inspired me. The first is what I've seen happening around India, Pakistan. At USC, we have more students from India than any school in the country, almost 1,800 students from India. So when we had the Mumbai terrorist attacks last week, the very tragic attacks in Mumbai, it really hit very close to home for us. So many of our students are from Mumbai. It hit close to home for me. My own in-laws were in Mumbai at the time. They were staying at the Oberoi Hotel, which was one of the hotels that was attacked. So I understood what my own students were going through. And in order to commemorate the attacks, in order to mourn together, we had a multi-faith candlelight vigil. It was the first time in USC's history where the Association of Pakistani Students and the Association of Indian Students co-sponsored an event together. And what we had was religious clerics from every tradition read scripture. So we had an imam read from the Quran. We had a Swami read from the Gita. And afterwards, I saw Indian students and Pakistani students lighting candles together, talking to each other about what this event meant to them, how it transformed them, and embracing one another, reading from each other's scriptures, praying with one another. What it made me realize is that these students would not have this opportunity in India. They would not have this opportunity in Pakistan. They would never meet if they were in their home countries. But coming to a diasporic research university, suddenly they have this opportunity to meet and to engage and to learn and to work together. These students are all elite students. You have to be elite to pay 50 grand a year, right? So they're going to go back into positions of power, go back into positions of privilege. They're going to be able to engender discussions in their home countries, develop an interfaith consciousness, only because they've had this experience abroad. So it made me realize that our universities are really unique locations where people from India and Pakistan, where people from Israel and Palestine, students can come together in ways that they can't come together in their own home countries and tell new narratives and tell new stories about what the future holds for their conflicted regions. We also had President Abdul Kalam, who's a really popular president. They call him the people's president in India. He's like our Obama, I guess you could say, although a lot older. And he's an engineer and he's a poet. And we have a lot of students from India who are engineers. So we had an event at USC with our engineering students, and Abdul Kalam came and challenged our students to think about how their engineering degrees could be used for the purposes of infrastructure development, for developing clean water facilities in rural India, for combating illiteracy. And our students were inspired. They were inspired, first of all, they came up to me and said, listen, I'm from New Delhi, Abdul Kalam lives down the street from me, but I would never be able to meet him in New Delhi. And here I am in LA, and he's coming to meet me where I'm at. So in a way, they were inspired because they could meet someone they admired so much in a way they might not have been able to in India. But they were also inspired because as engineers, no one had ever challenged them to think about how their degree could be used for the greater good. And they were inspired to the point where they really began to think about how can we use what we've learned here in the US to help with what's going on in India. Once again, a remarkable ability for us to think of our international students as being on the front lines of social justice, of taking from their experiences in an American university what they might not be able to get in their home countries, and of changing their societies when they go back. The other opportunity that's been inspiring for me is that around Muslim-Jewish engagement. Last year we started a Center for Muslim and Jewish Engagement at USC. It's a collaboration between USC, the Omar Al-Khattab Foundation and Mosque, which is the largest mosque in Southern California and sits right on our borders,